I was born in 1950. The polio epidemic peaked 2 years later, infecting 58,000 people and killing 3,100. That doesn't sound so great to me. However, by 1959, polio was pretty much gone in the United States. That was thanks to the work of Jonas Salk and his team of scientists. Yeah, scientists. You know, those people who collect data to figure out what's really going on? The people who know they'll make mistakes and take wrong turns, but know that's the only way to make discoveries. Like, how to cure polio. But scientists couldn't accomplish this on their own. It took all of us, the millions of people who contributed to the March of Dimes, and President Eisenhower, and Congress. A problem that affected all of us was solved by all of us. I'd say that was pretty great. So, what else? How about going to the moon?
If I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold. I'm the one who's doing all the work, so we just want you to stay cool for a minute. However, I think we're going to do it. And I think that we must pay what needs to be paid. I don't think we ought to waste any money, but I think we ought to do the job. And this will be done in the decade of the 60s. It may be done while some of you are still here at school at this college and university. It will be done during the terms of office of some of the people who sit here on this platform. But it will be done. And it will be done before the end of this decade. And I am delighted that this university is playing a part in putting a man on the moon as part of a great national effort of the United States of America.
As a nation, we had a vision. We worked hard. We took risks. And we got to the moon.
10 years ago, the great British explorer
What wasn't so great in those same times was the continued violence and discrimination against African Americans and other people of color. The continuation of our legacy of slavery. Those who protested, demanding change, were beaten, brutalized, sometimes murdered. Others were burned alive just for existing. Seeing this day after day on our TV screens eventually led the majority of Americans to say, enough already, enough.
Time for waiting is gone. So I ask you to join me in working long hours, and nights, and weekends if necessary, to pass this bill. And I don't make that request lightly. Far from the window where I sit with the problems of our country, I recognize that from outside this chamber is the outraged conscience of a nation, the grave concern of many nations, and the harsh judgment of history on our acts. But even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too, because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
Both the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts were signed into law by President Johnson, and later amended and extended over the next decade by President Nixon, President Ford, President Carter, and President Bush, with the widespread support of the American people. That was great. We were great. Well, here's a weird one. Really weird. I remember when people could actually lose elections. And it wasn't the end of the world, it was just life. You know, you lose, you pick yourself up, and you move on.
I have done my best. I have lost. Mr. Nixon has won. The democratic process has worked its will. So now let's get on with the urgent task of uniting our country. Thank you.
The presidency belongs to someone else, but the glory of these devoted working friends and their dedication to the noble ideals of this country sustains us now, and it will sustain our country. We will shed no tears because all of this effort, I am positive, will bear fruit for years to come.
I'd like to read you the telegram the President sent to President-elect Carter this morning. Dear Jimmy, although there will continue to be disagreements over the best means to use in pursuing our goals, I want to assure you that you have my complete and wholehearted support as you take the oath of office this January. I also pledge to you that I and all members of my administration will do all that we can to assure that you begin your term as smoothly and as effectively as possible. May God bless you and your family as you undertake your new responsibilities. Signed, Jerry Ford.
Here's the way we see it, and the country should see it, that the people have spoken, and we respect the majesty of the democratic system. I just called Governor Clinton over in Little Rock and offered my congratulations. He did run a strong campaign. I wish him well in the White House, and I want the country to know that our entire administration will work closely with his team to ensure the smooth transition of power. There is important work to be done, and America must always come first. So we will get behind this new president and wish him well.
I was just thinking on the way downstairs. I was thinking on the way down in the elevator, tomorrow will be the first time in my life I don't have anything to do. Let me say that I've talked to President Clinton. We had a good visit, and I congratulated him. And I've said, wait a minute. Now, I've said repeatedly, I've said repeatedly in this campaign that the president is my opponent, not my enemy, and I wish him well, and I pledge my support in whatever advances the cause of a better America. Is that what the race was about in the first place? A better America as we go into the next century?
My opponent, not my enemy. My country comes first. Think about that. These were not radical ideas then. Also not a radical idea back then. The health and safety of workers on the job comes before profits.
12,500 people lost their lives in accidents in America's factories and in other places of business. And over 2 million people were injured. This bill deals with that. It goes beyond that. It deals with the environment in which the people, the 55 million Americans who are covered by it, will be working. And it provides for an institute which will look into the problems of the environment, the problems of noise, the problems of cleanliness, all of these things that can affect health in an indirect way. And so it is, as the Secretary has indicated, a landmark piece of legislation. And so we see a bill that represents in its culmination the American system at its best. Democrats, Republicans, the House, the Senate, the White House, business, labor, all cooperating in a common goal: the saving of lives, the avoiding of injuries, making the places of work for 55 million Americans safer and more pleasant places. This is certainly a great goal. Today is a day when we can all be proud. The Congress can be proud. The Senate, the House, the Republicans, the Democrats, and of course the administration. And we thank you, therefore.
Yes, proud. Very proud. We all made this possible. It took a whole country to get this over the finish line. In the end, the bill creating OSHA passed into law by a vote in the Senate of 83-3, and in the House, 310-58. And another thing to be proud of back then, though really, was just common sense. Seeing something beautiful and special and doing something to protect it. In 1964, the Wilderness Act passed the House of Representatives 374-1 and was signed into law by President Johnson, preserving America's wildest lands for future generations, protected forests, mountains, and deserts from roads, machines, and development, keeping them as nature made them. The National Environmental Policy Act was signed into law by President Nixon in 1970 with a unanimous vote in the Senate. Unanimous. The National Environmental Policy Act made the environment a priority in every major federal decision. Before breaking ground, agencies now had to ask, what will this do to the land, the air, the water, and to the people who live nearby? Crazy, right? The Endangered Species Act became law under Nixon in 1973, with a similar level of bipartisan support. The Endangered Species Act sent a message that no species should vanish from the earth on our watch. It gave powerful protection to animals like the bald eagle and the gray wolf, and to the wild places, the wild ecosystems in which they live. Pure communism, right? I don't think so. Just caring people with a vision and a plan. We also had a government where its three branches stayed in their lanes, performing the duties assigned to them by the Constitution. Neither the Supreme Court nor Congress acted as extensions of the presidency. In 1974, the Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice Warren Burger, a Republican appointed by President Nixon, ruled unanimously against President Nixon. Their opinion stated that no person, not even the President of the United States, is completely above the law. The President's need for confidentiality must be balanced against the fundamental demands of due process and justice within our system of co-equal branches. And get this, Justice Burger was appointed to the Supreme Court by President Nixon. And get this, William Rehnquist, also a Republican appointed to the Supreme Court by President Nixon, recused himself from this case because he had previously worked for President Nixon in the Justice Department. He believed his deliberating on this case would have represented a conflict of interest. It would have been unethical. Oh, give me those good old days again, where ethics mattered on both sides of the aisle. And what else? In my version of a great America, we cared about protecting the natural world. We cared about working people. And we cared about people who lived beyond our borders, who had less than we did. Between 1950 and 1980, U.S. foreign aid was often a bipartisan endeavor, with Democrats and Republicans alike backing efforts to fight hunger, rebuild war-torn nations, stop the spread of disease, and support democracy abroad. From feeding millions through Food for Peace, to eradicating smallpox with the World Health Organization, to sending volunteers into rural villages through the Peace Corps, American generosity made a real difference in the world. That was something to feel proud of. Was. And another thing, dictators weren't admired, they weren't emulated. Then, sure, in the thick of the Cold War, we sometimes backed them, propped them up if they claimed to be anti-communist. That almost always backfired. We learned that lesson the hard way. But on our better days, we ganged up on dictators with our friends, together. We built fences of every kind around the bad actors of the world by creating military alliances like NATO, designed not to attack, but to deter our enemies. Remember those guys? Enemies? Aggressive countries led by dictators that would attack their neighbors if they thought they could get away with it. We learned this the hard way from World War II. Remember Neville Chamberlain? The Brit who thought Adolf Hitler could be appeased by giving him a piece of Czechoslovakia that was German-speaking. That didn't go well, did it?
Which bears his name upon it as well as mine. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
War. Precisely at dawn on September 1st, without warning, the German Wehrmacht rolled over the Polish border. Before the invasion was 30 minutes old, the planes of the Luftwaffe were over Poland, wiping out the Polish Air Force, most of it caught flat-footed on the ground.
In the aftermath of the Second World War, countries from all over the globe had a brilliant thought. War is not so great. Maybe we should do something about that. Let's get together and create an organization designed to stop war. And while we're at it, mass starvation and pandemics. They did that. It's called the United Nations. Hello? Not the enemy. Yeah, it's imperfect, and it can be slow and bureaucratic, but it is utterly necessary. Back then, when America was great, we were capable of not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
But the free world does pierce the Iron Curtain. From headquarters in Munich, a powerful radio network, Radio Free Europe, operates 29 broadcasting and relay stations in West Germany and Portugal.
Besides creating and supporting the United Nations, we funded Radio Free Europe to beam uncensored news past the Iron Curtain. We countered lies with facts. You remember those? Facts? Back when America was great, it was the bad guys who lied relentlessly, created alternative facts, manipulated their people. We countered oppression not just with speeches, but with our example, our messy, flawed, living, breathing democracy. We were the place where elections and the rule of law mattered. We were the country where people could express themselves without censorship or fear of intimidation or prosecution. Back in my version of a great America, not only were foreign dictators not admired or emulated, you could tell the good guys from the bad guys pretty easily. It was the bad guys, like these guys from those other countries, who wore masks when they arrested people. I know this sounds radical, but I like it when the cops show their faces and their badges. Back when America was great, that's just what they did, even when they weren't doing their jobs the way they were supposed to. That's how some of them got caught. No masks, badges. What a concept. Oh, and if you spoke Italian and looked tough, the police couldn't stop you just because they thought you might be in the mafia. The courts wouldn't let them do that. Then, how old-fashioned we were, thinking a police state wasn't such a good idea. That kind of old-fashioned really was pretty great. I miss it. There's plenty I don't miss as well. We were not perfect. The same JFK who launched the effort to get us to the moon also laid the groundwork for the Vietnam War, was responsible for the Bay of Pigs disaster, and had multiple affairs while he and Jackie occupied the White House. The environmentally friendly Richard Nixon, who expanded our relationship with China, also expanded and prolonged the Vietnam War, broke the law and abused his presidential power for political gain. LBJ, the Southerner, who evolved to become a champion of civil rights, was notorious for browbeating, intimidating, and humiliating subordinates and colleagues. He dramatically escalated the war in Vietnam and consistently lied about it. The war consumed lives, resources, and political capital. It ultimately undermined his Great Society programs and destroyed public trust in government. We have been there before, even during the heyday of our economic boom. Distrust ran high, very high, during and after the Vietnam War. But it eventually came back. Because all in all, the government was staffed by competent people who did their jobs with minimal political interference. They followed the law and they performed. And so did the economy, big time. As the economy grew in the aftermath of World War II, so did the middle class. And the more the middle class grew, the more the economy grew. This virtuous cycle was at the core of America creating the world's strongest economy. It was at the heart of our belief that our economic future was good and would be better for our children.
Women and men alike are increasingly interested in the look of things. They eagerly give their attention to what's new and beautiful and advanced.
When people feel secure about their future, there's little opportunity for the politics of fear and division to thrive. But let's be honest with ourselves. What a concept, right? Our prosperity was not just a result of our good looks, so to speak. We were lucky, incredibly lucky. Unlike the rest of the developed world, whose industrial infrastructure was left in ashes at the end of World War II. Once again, our oceans protected us from that devastation. We were, in effect, the last man standing at the end of the war, and we took full advantage of it. Our industrial output soared. We had a couple of other things going for us, too. Like a federal minimum wage that pretty much kept up with inflation. I'd like to see that again. And as you can see, the middle class really was in the middle. And it was big. Sure, there were rich people, but they weren't so much richer than the rest of us. And what else? Union membership was high, giving lots of workers leverage to bargain for fair pay and benefits. Tax policy was progressive. The rich paid a lot more than they do today, and so did businesses. The result was that prosperity was broadly shared, a big middle class. Call it communism or whatever BS you want to call it, but give me more of that. Oh, and the government invested lots in schools, science, and highways.
It will really unite all of our United States. It will be possible to drive from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean and from Canada to Mexico on safe, multi-lane, divided highways without a single stoplight or stop sign. You will travel swiftly, easily, and safely because safety for the traveling public is engineered right into the plan.
The GI Bill provided veterans returning from wars with access to higher education. Remember the GI Bill? Right, more communism. No, common sense.
What's going to happen to him? Is it going to be the same for these GIs hitting the beach at Saipan, or the Siegfried Line, or the Gothic Line, or any line that's needed hitting? When it's all over, is it going to be like last time for them?
No, this time it's going to be different.
Yeah? What makes you so sure?
Because in Washington, there were a group of congressmen with long memories who were in the last war. They knew that when a man gets out of the Army or Navy or Marines, he's worried most about a job, an education, and a home. And that's why Congress, led by the President, passed the law, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, better known as the GI Bill of Rights. And to make sure it works, a Veterans Administration is already busy in Washington with General Frank Hines in charge.
That was pretty darn great, if you were white. Many Americans of color and women and others were excluded from full participation in our economy. However, civil rights and women's rights legislation were slowly, ever so slowly widening actual access to middle-class prosperity. This didn't happen just because the Declaration of Independence spoke to the right of everyone to pursue happiness. It happened because people, lots of people, fought for it. And many of our leaders, on both sides of the aisle, took big risks to expand the definition of everyone. Leaders, real leaders with guts, weren't afraid to stand up to the powers that be. Or more likely, they were afraid, but did the right thing anyway. Doing the right thing. What a radical concept. Hubert Humphrey, a Democrat from Minnesota, fought for a strong civil rights platform at his party's 1948 convention.
Fellow Democrats, fellow Americans, I realize that in speaking in behalf of the Minority Report on Civil Rights as presented by Congressman B. Miller of Wisconsin that I'm dealing with a charged issue because good conscience, decent morality demands it. I feel I must rise at this time to support a report, the Minority Report, a report that spells out our democracy, a report that the people of this country can and will understand, and a report that they will enthusiastically acclaim on the great issue of civil rights. Get this, all people, white and black, all groups, all racial groups, have been the victims at time in this nation of, let me say, vicious discrimination. To those who say that we are rushing this issue of civil rights, I say to them, we are 172 years late.
As a consequence of the speech, the Southern Democrats, dubbed Dixiecrats, walked out of the convention and left the party. But eventually civil rights legislation was passed, and the South became a Republican stronghold. Margaret Chase Smith, a Republican from Maine, spoke out against Senator Joseph McCarthy's anti-communist witch hunts at a time when few dared challenge him.
I believe with all my heart that we must not become a nation of mental mutes, blindly following demagogues.
As a consequence, she was marginalized within her party for years. And eventually, McCarthy's hold on his party and the nation was broken.
He became a member as early as 1944.
Senator, may we not drop this? I did you, I think, no personal injury, Mr. Cole.
No, sir.
And if I did, I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator.
Let's
You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
Of course, there were leaders willing to buck the system who were not politicians. These individuals, from many walks of life, chose to risk their careers to fight injustice. In my MAGA, they are heroes. We need more of them. Now. But let's get real. We need more than heroism. We need leaders with the brains and vision to tackle complex problems and the ability to explain their not-so-simple ideas in terms the average person can understand. Complex problems most often don't translate into simplistic solutions like build a wall or tax the rich. President Eisenhower didn't say, drain the Pentagon swamp. He said this.
But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
We need leaders today who are as perceptive and eloquent as Eisenhower, because today we face challenges even more complicated than the military-industrial complex. We have neighborhoods where people don't know each other, let alone trust one another. Kids who have relationships with their phones, but not each other. We still have jobs being lost to automation and outsourcing. And these losses are nothing compared to what artificial intelligence is going to do, especially to white-collar jobs. And we are going to have a federal government to rebuild, not like it was before Project 2025 came to town, but like it needs to be, so that government can be effective in 2030 and beyond. Effective, not necessarily big. Let's aim for lean, but not mean. Intelligent, creative, and bold. Creating opportunities, equal opportunities, not necessarily programs. We do this by leveling the playing field, making the game reasonably fair. It's never going to be perfectly fair. Let's get over it. Reasonably fair would be pretty darn good, a far cry from today. We can draw on the past to help us do all of this. My MAGA is not about a period of time that was perfect or golden. It is about a time when certain values, those I've been highlighting, stood out. They can serve as the basis for our coming together to rebuild our country so that it can prosper and become more just in the years ahead. I don't mean to idolize or romanticize this period of my youth. There was plenty going on then that was awful, just as there is plenty going on now that is wonderful. What I am saying is that if we are to look back to the post-World War II period for inspiration, as the other MAGA has done, this is what I would focus on. Decency, empathy, cooperation, fairness, respect for democracy and the rule of law. It was these values that made America great then, and I believe they will be the basis for the next round of American renewal. Let's hit it out of the park. How do you see it? What is your MAGA?
We've drifted from the promise that wants to find our core. We still can be that country, and one day so much more. Not looking for perfection, just rules that play the same. The field's been slanted long enough, it's time to change the game. We still can be that country when courage takes the lead, when doing right means sacrifice, not showmanship or greed, not showmanship or greed. When respect meant more than shouting, and lies were still called lies, we argued hard but relied on facts that helped our nation rise. The dream's not gold or glory, it's knowing we belong. When work earns you a living, we're a nation standing strong. We still can be that country when courage takes the lead, when doing right means sacrifice, not showmanship or greed, not showmanship or greed. We still can be that country. We still can be that country. We still can be that country. We still can be that country.
I've said repeatedly in this campaign that the president is my opponent, not my enemy, and I wish him well, and I pledge my support in whatever advances the cause of a better America, because that's what the race was about in the first place, a better America as we go into the next century.